Got it. All right. We're in.
All right, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Inspiration Accelerator. I am here with a really close friend and somebody that I'm super excited to have on the show today. We were actually talking before we went live. We've known each other since the year 2000. 23 plus years. And his name is Bryan Maher. He's a musician, he's a songwriter, he's a music producer. He is the lead singer, frontman of a band called Black Suit Youth. They're on a label called 59X Records out of Atlanta, Georgia. He is also a new dad and somebody that I am proud to have played music with for a while and to call a friend. Bryan, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Maybe we'll play music again. Who knows? Future's wide open.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I got roped into a like a side project a couple of months ago with some people who you don't know this story, but some people who and we went to the studio, and they were working on like the part for like a bridge in a song, and whether it was going to be 4 bars or 8 bars, and I was absolutely miserable. And I went out into the parking lot, and I was just like
Uh,
on my phone, and I told them, hey, listen, if you want to write songs, this is cool. I don't want to be involved at this process. I want to wait till like the songs are done. And I found
yeah.
that like I lost my passion for songwriting. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, that I have my passion for that level of overthinking. I've certainly lost. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I, no, I don't lose my passion for songwriting ever, but I do like lose the ability. I'd say from time to time, like you
Mm.
just get a writer's block depending on what else you have going on in your life. Like, when my kid was first born, those first couple of weeks were so hectic because
Yeah.
just it wasn't the easiest pathway into the world for him and my wife, so they were in and out of the hospital and it was difficult. And just the lack of sleep, and just I was going on all these interviews at the same time and doing all this other stuff. I had to take all these tests and all these certifications. And it was just like, there was no ability to do anything creative because all the bandwidth in my mind was just, siphoned and used towards just getting through the day. And I would just, if I had a free moment here and there, I'd try to sound the guitar and I couldn't write anything. It was just dribble, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then all of a sudden the inspiration comes back and then it'll come in waves. I can write something that's okay, something that's decent, and then I'll get a couple ones I consider to be good.
Yeah.
And then it'll like the muses will channel it through you ethereally, and all of a sudden you'll have it again,
Yeah.
and then it goes away. It's weird. It's the guys like Desmond Child or you know Holly Knight, or people who go out and they write songs every single day and they're all good. That I'm envious of. I don't know how you do that. Like you know.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point. I think it's important for anybody who's in the creative space. I mean, for years I thought that whether it was music or because I like to refer to myself as like a recovering novelist. I've written 5 novels, 2 of which got published. I don't recommend that anybody seek them out, but
I read them both. I,
uh,
I got them on this bookshelf back here. I
they're on
have
the
them.
bookshelf. All right, right on, right on.
Yeah.
But for a lot of time, I operated like inspiration was some sort of divine intervention, and that I would write when I was inspired to write, versus what all the pros do. Everybody who's ever been great at anything creative, where they treat it like it's an actual job. And I know that for most of us, we have actual jobs, and so it's hard to treat something creative as your job. But even something as simple as waking up an hour earlier and writing for an hour each day, or today's Sunday. This is the first time we've ever done an interview on a Sunday, but I've been up for this is a pretty early interview. I've been up for 4 hours at
This
this
is early.
point. Yeah, so I've been up for
It's all good.
4 hours at this
Yeah.
point. And I've been working on a book I'm working on. And
Nice.
my point is, the like treating any of this stuff like it's an actual job versus waiting for the kind of the hand of God to touch us. I mean, how does that factor into your creativity?
It's certainly better to be prepared. It's certainly better, like when you're training for a race, you're going to perform better if you've been practicing every day up until that point. So that
Yeah,
if you have the channel open, if you're like constantly, keeping your fingers loose, when the inspiration does come, you're going to be able to channel it and use it more effectively.
yeah,
But we're all human beings. Some days you just don't have it. Some days you
yeah,
go to work and you're just tired at your job, and
yeah.
other days you're crushing it. But the key is consistency. I do agree with that, like to always attempt to create.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think
And
it's a great point. Let's talk about I want to get to the big thing here, which is this cross country journey you went on back in 2015 that really, was life changing. But before we get there, speaking of life changing, you're a new dad. How old's your son?
he was born at 4:20 on New Year's Eve. So he is 9 months and he's getting like to 9.5 months. So he's just at the point where he's breathed oxygen as a gas more than a liquid. Finally.
Nice, nice. Well, congrats,
Thanks.
congrats on your son. What has the change been? I mean, when you're a musician, and particularly as somebody who leads the band, right, the
Yeah.
front man, there's something about. I mean, I've said this about myself for years, that when I was fronting bands, I was part of the reason why I did it, because I was starved for attention and I wanted everybody to look
Totally.
at me, right?
Of
What
course.
is it? What was it? What's it been like for you to take a total back seat to another human, somebody
Oh,
that you created? What's that experience been like for you?
I mean, it is like the most all-encompassing, joyful, amazing thing. I mean, obviously, some days it can be frustrating and overwhelming. It's just
Sure.
there's a never-ending litany of things you have to constantly do, as you well know. I don't know how anyone has more than one child. I mean, I'm drowning under the weight of just this tiny little baby. You know what I mean? Just everything, just besides like the bottles and just constantly cleaning and sterilizing everything, and the
Yeah.
his bath and dishes, and just trying to find a second to breathe to clean the bathroom once a week. Like it's amazing how much you have to do. But yeah, I mean, it was funny too because the first time I got back to the band, it was a couple of months later. We had a
Yeah.
gig that had been it was on the books since middle of his conception. Who had some friends from coming up from Tennessee we were going to open for, and pretty much right now. The only time we do gigs is when like a band we've met out in the road is coming to New York and needs an opener, which is great because we like to play early, so that's good now.
Yeah.
But it was funny. The first gig, it was like I guess he was 2.5 months old, and I felt bad having to go out for a night and not being there to like support my wife and back him up and give
Wow.
him his bottle for 3 hours. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it
Yeah.
was I felt like almost like a betrayal. But you have to get out and it's good for your mind. It makes you a better parent to do something else and decompress and come back too, because you don't want to be carrying all of that stress and weight of the one thing you're doing. You need a release in some fashion, I think, to make
Yeah.
you a more relaxed, better person when you got to deal with a crying baby at 2 a.m. and you have to be up at 4 a.m., like,
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal point. I travel a lot for work, which I know and I find that I mean, look, would I love to have dinner with my wife and kids every night? I would. This is going to sound crazy, but I almost feel like me being here less often makes when I'm here, like it's like an event and I get up for it. I'm never just going through the motions as a parent or as a husband, because I don't do it all the time.
yeah,
So I almost get up kind of in the way that you and I would get up to play a show. Like it's an event, it's important, it's big. So I bring like my A game to it. And whether we're talking about something on for me, like on more of like a macro level, is like I'm away often, or even just getting out to step away from whatever the thing is, to then come back to it in a more intentional way, is a really important. It's an important distinction. I imagine there are people listening to the show right now who are thinking about things that they may be going through the motions on, right? Like it's the whole, and I've catch myself doing it. My kids are talking to me, but I'm staring at my phone for no fucking reason at all. It's so stupid. And like, but I'm like, I'm cognizant of it. but it rarely happens because I'm so cognizant of it.
It's good you have that self-awareness though, because a lot of people don't. I see them walking right into traffic on their phones. It's
Yeah,
insane,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but it's good to
It's
be like, you got to earn however you got to earn, and it's important to be impactful when you're there. But what the phone is a good point is the technology that we have now is that you can be away and you can zoom in. Like
yeah,
my wife took my kid to the Jersey Shore. I couldn't go at that for whatever. I usually try to be involved in everything, but I had to stay here for work related stuff, and I had to miss a couple of days of a vacation. And they were zooming in and checking in from the beach, and
that's
I'm
cool.
not there specifically, but I can still wave to my kid, and he can recognize me and smile. All
That's
it makes
good.
a difference. It does help,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's a big deal. It's a
so they're
big
not
deal.
totally a controlling curse. The phone.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Take the good with the bad, right? Talk to me about your this journey you went on. Really, this is such a powerful kind of revelation for you and a life change. So walk us through kind of who you are and this cross country journey and who you became after.
It was a spirit quest, man. No, but it was honestly like a life reset was what I was looking for. I was like very unhappy in every facet of my life. I didn't like what I was doing for money. I was having a string of bad relationships. And I just needed to get away. Like I always like, I toured in bands for years. I did all the bookings for those tours. So I had like built up a network of friends across the country that I could crash at or get in touch with, when my band was coming to town. So I'm like, how about I book myself a tour where I just go hang out and couch surf, and I kind of just have time to myself to like, you know, figure out even who I am and what I want to do, because the crushing weight of just being around here, it's just too noisy and too loud. And I couldn't like just get a good grip on what it was that I wanted to accomplish going forward. And at this point, I'm already in my mid 30s. I'm like, there's only a certain amount of time, you can still do viable things at a certain level, I think, where ageism comes into play and you can't get into certain opportunities because you're past the prime of them. And I was starting to age past all those, like, all those city tests and stuff. If you needed to get that job, you were too old for them and whatever. So,
Mm,
and other things. So I was just like, you know what? I always wanted to take a long train ride, like, the romance of the rails, like going west, like the pioneers or whatnot, that romantic stuff. And I'm like, all right. And it was cheaper a flight, like to book a train from Penn Station, New York to Los Angeles, 3 days. And it was like $180 or something. I'm like,
yeah, because they
sold.
know that very few people are going to do that, so they make it
Yeah.
super
I
affordable.
mean, you can make it more expensive. You can get one of those sleeper cars, but I was in
Sure.
Gen Pop, with
Yeah.
all the maniacs, and I learned very quickly who you're going to be sharing that train with.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals who are given $100 by the city and told to leave types.
Okay.
Like,
Got it. Got it.
so you get like it's like that kind of that situation goes on there. But I'm cool in that situation. I made a lot of friends, so it was
Nice.
good.
Nice.
But yeah, so it was a 3 day journey, and my goal initially was I was going to travel the whole country and back on land. I wanted to just trains, buses, cars, whatever. But just by virtue of I needed to be in Texas at a certain date, I had to relent and take two short flights on my trip. But in general, I tried to stay on the ground.
Okay, but
But
what was the okay, got it. So we're going cross country by train, got to take a couple flights to get to Texas. But what was you were unhappy? What was the source of the unhappiness? I hear that, weren't doing the work that you really wanted to
yeah,
do, found yourself like I think a lot of us who
I
like
I was in a
pursue
pattern. That's
yeah,
what it was. I was going in the same repetitive pattern of just falling back into bad habits with bad people and just not living up to potential by just settling for whatever or procrastinating and putting things off. So I was like, sometimes you just have to get away to get perspective. You know what I mean? And I felt
yeah,
like I'm going to every day be confronted with a new situation I've never dealt with. And
yeah,
that's going to force me to have to think differently and act differently. And that may make me think and act differently when I come home. Best way of putting it.
yeah.
So that was kind of my theory on it, which it did.
Yeah,
Came up with some
but the
processes.
the connection to the music piece, though, I think for anybody who starts out, I shouldn't say for anybody, but for a lot of people we know, you start out playing in a band, and the goal is that you're going to become at least for me, and I think for you as well, the next big musical act,
Oh,
and
that was part of
a
it, of
world
course.
famous rock star. And I'm sorry, my dog is losing her mind
They do
in the background.
that.
I'd love to say we're going to edit this out, but we're not
No,
going
let it
to.
go. Everyone
Um,
had dogs.
but that I had to get to a point of saying, like, it's not going to happen. It's not. Um,
Yeah.
and for me, that was it was hard. It was really hard to say that I'd spent all this time, not the playing of music, but the like we're gonna be huge.
Yeah,
And
the idea of being a massively famous rock star where all my problems are going to be solved because I'm going to be ridiculously rich and I'm going to be able to have all these contacts and all this amazing stuff. Like, yeah, I was obviously disappointed that I was only able to get to the level of being minutely, marginally known in my own scene. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
despite all these years of work and having collaborated and done all this stuff and opened for famous bands, just, lightning just didn't strike for me in that way. Unfortunately,
yeah,
I got to do amazing stuff. I'm not like, oh, whatever we did. No, we did more than other people did, so I can be happy to look back on some things. But
yeah,
I had absurdly high expectations, and I did,
yeah,
we worked together. I did everything the hard way, just because I had to be different too. I could have just put on a certain suit and done a certain thing and been able to probably do better. But that's just not me. I'm just a pain in the ass. I had to do
yeah,
it and like try to. I feel like the with a higher risk, a higher reward type quotient there.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
but
but even at
where
this
does that
point,
come from? Or where I'm starting to be, where does that come from? The need to, because I have it too, and even though
I
it's shifted, but like this need for fame or attention or people
revenge.
to look at us. Yeah, revenge against who? For
I don't
what?
know, being an only child and you're getting all that attention, but also it's like a kind of a loneliness and like you want more adoration than just your parents. And then having just going to school in the school system I went to that was violently abusive and like just constantly it was like Lord of the Flies every other day. And it was like everyone calls you a loser and they break you down mentally and physically. And just being like, I'll show all of you. Oh, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Or just
yeah.
rejection, things like that, I think fuel into that fire to be like, okay, and then even if you were successful, those people still they still suck. So it doesn't matter anyway. I can remember like when I was a skateboarder, I was trying to ollie up this really high bank one time, and all these kids like you suck, you blow, whatever. And then I finally did it. I'm like you still suck. I mean, so it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have made a difference. You know what I mean? So I had to get into my head.
Well, I think it's an interesting point because all the folks who get to that next level or multiple levels up, they still struggle with stuff.
Yeah.
I remember my dad talking about it. This is decades ago, but one of the guys from Motley Crue, it wasn't when Nikki Sixx OD'd, but one of the guys from Motley Crue was in trouble for something, and drugged.
Probably Vince Neil
Oh,
killing
yeah,
Razzle maybe.
yeah. Well, no, it was after that, but
Yeah.
um my dad was like, I don't get it. If I was them, if I was rich and famous, I would never do this. I would never do that. I would never leave my house. I was like, you don't understand. I go, their motivation, the reason why they are who they are is because something is broken in them. There's something, to your point, revenge, right, against people who put you down, and like a really tough school system. For me, my thing was like needing approval, because,
Oh
and
yeah.
speaking of my dad, like not having gotten approval from him, and always like everything was wrong, everything was bad, and me being like, you know what, I'm gonna become the most famous rock star in the whole world, and then I'm going to get approval from
Yeah.
millions because I couldn't get it from you. Now that's the 49-year-old me who understands what was motivating the 17-year-old me. I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea, but I get it. I get it now. And I think, and tell me if this is true for you, that part of why I was able to let go of some of that stuff was like coming to terms with really the motivation behind it, and not being beholden to being that, the little
Yeah.
kid who's getting put down by his
True.
dad.
Yeah, hopefully as you age and evolve, you're able to actually let go, recognize trauma and get it out of your system. And once you do that, you can kind of accept other things because you don't have that burning desire like you know, you just cut people off that you wanted to show these people up, but it's like, nah, they don't exist. And if I don't need them, the motivation is gone basically, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't need to show them anymore. So I don't need to do this thing to show them anymore, you know? And
Yeah.
then, I what it came down to, I got into the location of music because I was always interested in recording, even as a little kid with a boom box, just making little
Yeah.
mixes and recording myself, you know?
Yeah.
And that was always my favorite thing. I wanted to be on a record label because I wanted to be famous, but I wanted to be able to. The dream for all local musicians is to make records without having to pay your own money. So achieving that dream was awesome. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're able to do records and not get dropped and be able to keep continuing to be creative on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
That is a dream come true that a lot couldn't accomplish. So I am really grateful for that opportunity all the time. 10X for allowing their faith in us despite diminishing returns sometimes.
Yeah.
But you know how it is too. The good one band on the label pays for the other 19 that are
Sure.
struggling. I mean,
Sure.
that's how it. And
It's
then
the
someone
same
else
with
has that hit,
publishing
and
too.
yeah, totally. Like so, that one tide will lift all the boats. That's always the model, and especially these days where you're just not selling CDs and records like you used to. It's all just streaming, which is nothing. So basically, it's become likes as the currency. Now you're a social media person, and that was where I was fighting with my label too, because like they want us to be doing like a cooking show or fixing a car show or something that leads back to the music, and it's like I'm not going to be a multi-brand. Like I don't have the time to do that, and I don't.
Yeah.
My interests also aren't that varied that I could make an interesting show about one of my other hobbies. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
but
Yeah,
we're
I
getting
do.
far out there now. I know, but
I do. I do.
yeah.
What's the for you? Like, is getting on stage and being in front of an audience, is that still interesting and inspiring for you? Is that still like, hey,
I
this is just in me?
I like that more than I ever did now. Like when I was doing gigs were more of like a means to an end for me. Like I wasn't having fun at any of the shows we were playing because I did all the business behind it. So when I'm on stage, I'm not connecting and rocking out like I should because I'm watching everyone in the room and I'm like, well, why are they walking away? How many T-shirts did we sell yesterday? Do we have
Yeah.
enough gas to get to Cleveland from Pittsburgh? Like that's
Yeah.
all the self management shit was in my head all the time and making it not fun. Now like I said, we open for my friends' bands, and we barely rehearse, and we sound better than we ever did because I think we were over rehearsing to the point of like self sabotage almost. Like I don't know, like there is something true to like study long, study wrong. Like
Yeah.
we go out there now, it's have a couple drinks, we sound better on stage than we ever have. We kick ass. Younger kids are actually think we're good. They don't think we're a bunch of old fogies up there doing it. So it's like having that validation of approval, even from like 15 kids who just moved here from parts unknown. That's awesome. And again, living right where I am on like the Queens Brooklyn border, the scene is hot now. People are here from everywhere. There's clubs and bars and there's all this artists and all this stuff happening that I was involved in a lot more right before I had my kid. I mean, it's just hard to get out now on a Monday night, but you know, having that validation is cool. Like, I don't even care if we get it or not. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's made me have so much more fun, and the feeling I'm coming away with is more electric. Like it's just more of a blast. And the show doesn't have to be perfect. I was such a stickler for everything being like the Carpenters and being like perfectly like is on the record. I don't care. It's a different animal now. I don't.
Yeah.
You know what? I like when we screw up and now we got to find our way out of the woods. Like, how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
Are we going to do it? There's a danger to it that I love now. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's something so interesting about music that I don't think the average person gets, particularly at the level that you're at, or even the level that my old band got to, which is not nearly as far as you all got, but still like you're
You got some good notoriety.
well, but still like you're doing stuff for yourself,
Yeah,
right? You're doing your own sound check in most cases, and you're printing out your own set lists, and
that definitely.
there's nobody bringing you beer up on stage. You've got to put your own beer, like just little things, right? I mean, if you break a string on your
No
guitar,
tech anymore. No.
there's right. I mean, if
Yeah.
if James Hetfield from Metallica breaks a string, that somebody runs over
Yeah.
and hands him another guitar. And I think what is a really interesting thing about it, and while I don't want to speak for you, but my musical career didn't kind of end the way that I thought it would, which by the way I'm grateful for, because if we would have gotten mega famous when I was 23 years old, I am confident that I would not be sitting here talking. I would not be above the ground. I'm confident in that. I was not mature enough to handle it. I was
Yeah, but you're a survivor type. You would have put yourself through some shit. I have no doubt about that.
well,
But I don't think you would have been dead. I don't know. Like,
well, regardless, even though my musical journey didn't end the way that I thought it would have originally, there's something that you learn from, as to your point, being in front of a crowd, that might be hostile towards you. We've had beer bottles thrown at
oh
us.
yeah,
The guitar player breaks a string and now they're playing everything like kind of differently, but the same.
yeah,
And it's live. I mean, the most recent show that we played was actually with you all. It was back in 2018. It was that autism benefit that we
yeah.
did.
That was a great show. I was packed.
Yeah, you guys killed it. Actually, was that maybe that was I think that was May of 2019, actually.
Yeah, that was a long time
It was
ago.
May of 2019. It's the last show that I played, and the first show that we'd played in years, my band. And I go to grab the mic, and during the very first song, and I realize that this is going to sound so ridiculous, but there are wires all over the place under my feet. And which I mean, wires and music go hand in hand. But for whatever reason, it was like triple the amount of wires. I don't know why there were all these fucking wires. And now I'm like standing on uneven ground.
Yeah.
And here I am. It sounds like the most minute thing, but there are 100 people here or more who are ready to listen. And I'm like, I don't have my balance. I'm like, I can't. Now I'm like, and it's
Hey,
those
listen, you're
types
there
of
to sing. You're
things.
not there to stand. All right. So
Yeah,
don't worry about your balance.
exactly. But it's that type of thing multiplied by 100 that I'm convinced have made me more able to handle like conflicts at work, conflicts at home. Have you found that music's been almost this like almost this prep program for life in general?
Oh, I mean, no, chasing a concert promoter down the streets of Boston to get my money. Yeah, I mean, that'll definitely
Yeah.
teach you about conflict resolution. The guy locks himself in his car to avoid you in Cincinnati, But yeah, I mean, because you encounter issues, I mean, we were on tour with another band, and we became endeared to them because the tire blew out on the bus, and it was their bus. They were taking us along,
Oh,
and they were all pulling the money together for this dually tire, which was expensive, and we all got our money, and we like, hey, we'll kick in. Like, you guys are gonna kick in. I'm like, well, we need the tire as much as you do to get to the next city, man. And like, oh, that's awesome, man. Other bands they never do. I'm like, those guys suck. I mean,
yeah.
we all got to get here. So like, teachers been doing the right thing, having each other's backs because yeah, when my string breaks, one of those guys might help throw me their guitar.
Yeah.
Or they'll sell merch for us because we couldn't afford to bring somebody this time or whatever. Like, so you learn about helping each other out, and you learn about conflict resolution because 8 guys in a fucking van can get hairy in certain situations when some of them want to go to sleep and others want to do drugs all night, or whatever
Right,
other reason
right.
might be
But
going on,
even in the
you
songwriting
know.
process too, I mean, talk about conflict resolution. I mean, even in the
Yeah.
songwriting process, there are lots of arguments about like what's the best idea. And there are people who want the song to go in this direction and people who
Oh
want the
yeah.
song to go in another direction. I mean, if you're
So you
in a
learn to try it.
band,
You
you
learn to
learn to
try
try,
both.
right, you learn
Yeah.
to try things, but you also learn that your idea is not always gonna make it.
And it's not
And
always good. Yeah.
right, that your idea is not always good. And there are things I think, I can speak for myself, but I imagine you have examples too of like things that you were really attached to, whether it be a particular song or the name of a song or like
The birth of Chroma, man. I don't know if you can
oh,
remember
that
that
was yeah,
argument,
yeah. That was a
but
song we wrote years ago.
and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think you
yeah.
were right anyway in the long run. But yeah.
Well, just remind me of the story there. You really liked the song and I wasn't a fan of it,
You
correct?
guys wanted to change it to like a more traditional structure, and it would have been the only one that wasn't. It was more of a White Rabbit type bolero, but I wanted to do something different, and you guys were like, no, like
Got it, got it, got it.
basic gist, whatever.
Yeah,
And
but I
everything
think
was life or death back then. We had to practice on Christmas. We were crazy.
well,
We
we
were
used
so
to practice
dedicated.
with the lights
Yeah.
off too.
Oh yeah.
So that
Yeah. So you couldn't see your hands.
yeah, yeah, we used to practice with the lights off. And I was the one who was adamant about that because I was like, you know what, we don't know what the lighting's going to be like in these different clubs. and we're like, we can't count on being able to see things. So it's interesting that it was my idea, considering I didn't play guitar. So you all had
It's
to deal
funny.
with the repercussions of that.
But that prepared me because then we were renting Tomas's garage and the fuse would blow and we'd be in the middle of a song and have to finish in the darkness because the lights would go out, but the lower electric would remain. So we could still keep playing, but we just
Yeah,
have no lights. So yeah, we'd be in pitch blackness, like finishing a song,
just
so we could
finishing
do
a
it.
song.
At least I could,
Got it.
like.
Got it. Got it. Got it. There was this idea. I mean, what do you think about the state of music today? I mean, we look at, I mean, Taylor Swift is the biggest star in the world, but there's also a lot of the bands that we grew up with. I mean, Metallica is doing a world tour right now, and Pantera's back. And I know the whole, like, the streaming thing is a real hot topic. A friend of mine recently said that he was talking to a pretty big band who said, we're not musicians anymore, we're traveling t-shirt salesmen,
I've heard
because
that many times. It's a
folks,
common refrain.
yeah,
Yeah.
folks, that's where they make their money. What do you think about the state of music, and will we ever get back to bands putting out really big, meaningful albums, or is it
Uh,
mostly singles and Justin Bieber collaborating with Lil Wayne and things like
yeah.
that? What are your thoughts?
I think you could put up the old man yells at cloud meme right now because
Yeah, yeah.
no, I mean, yeah, I think it's gone back to the beginning where it's more singles driven because singles drive the metrics of Spotify. You can put a record, it's great, but the next week you got to put something out. So every time you put out a song, for instance, it can catch the other songs back up and keep you going. So it's like putting more money into a slot machine. So there's always an onus
Got
on
it.
just
So hold on, I want
releasing
to be here. So
everything.
there's a benefit to releasing songs in an incremental way
Yeah,
versus just releasing an
because
album at one
everything in
time.
streaming, whether it's YouTube, whether it's your thing that you're doing, is all content driven. You have to keep creating more content to keep watering the plants from the last content.
Okay.
Everything, all the climb drags everything else along with it is the idea, and that's how the algorithm picks things up. So there's onus on constantly being creative, which is why I think a lot of people are putting out shit, because they're putting out things that aren't songs, especially like I think in the Latin era and the a lot of the hip hop is just vamping on one part. It's not even a song anymore. It's just a vibe with a couple of lines for a minute and 30 seconds so that you can chop it up on TikTok. And it's
Mm.
created artists who like are famous on TikTok where people go to their show and they rap along to the first verse and then they don't know the rest of the fucking song and it's silence and it's really weird. You know what I mean? Like
Really?
that's a
I had
new
no idea
phenomenon
about
that never
this.
happened, you know?
Wow.
Unless like the song was like the Jane's Addiction song at the beginning of Entourage or something. Maybe you only know the first line
Oh, sure,
because it
sure,
wasn't a
yeah.
popular song, but that's a rare example.
Yeah.
And as far as Taylor Swift, my issue with her, Taylor Swift and Adele are sucking up all the world's vinyl. Not necessarily them personally, but their labels are to make 60 different versions of each record to sell one to Walmart and Target. And then their completist fans buy them all. And there's not enough vinyl to go around to all the indie bands, which raises the price and the wait times are extreme now. Like if we want to put out a record, we were probably going to do a vinyl for our next album. We were going to release it this month, and we figured out, you know what, we have to push it to like February just because the wait
Mm.
times are and we also had an issue getting the art, so there are things to push it back beyond that.
So
But
you're talking about the actual physical
yeah,
vinyl. You're
because
not, this
vinyl
is
is
not
is
a euphemism here. You're talking about actual records that they are
vinyl.
putting.
Even people collect vinyl don't even listen to it; they just keep it on a shelf. It's like their
Yeah, it's like a,
Funko Pop or
yeah, it's
whatever they
like,
collect.
yeah, it's art. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So vinyl is bigger than it has ever been, and the labels are cashing in. They're reissuing all their back catalog of records that no one's cared about for 100 years. You know what I mean? You go to like the mall now, you're gonna see like Dr. Dre, The Chronic next to like Jefferson Starship next to like Burt Bacharach. Like, who's buying this? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's not there's not enough new vinyl. Like
Yeah.
bands, it's hard for indie bands and bands now are just doing very small pressings because it's so exorbitant. You used to be able to do 300, it costs 100 to do 300 now. You know what I mean? Like,
Got it. Got it.
and you got to sell them higher to make your money back. So it's like kind of a loss leader. It's just to get your name out
Mm.
there too.
Yeah.
So there's that and the vinyl. I can go on about all these things, but excuse me. All these legacy bands are still out there, and they're taking some new bands out with them. That's definitely good, but I don't know if any of these bands are catching fire. Like,
Yeah, but
and
I
there's no
do think it's
MTV.
cool, man. I do think it's
Yeah.
cool. It's like to see a Journey on tour. Even, I mean, it's not with the original singer, but to see a lot of these bands going out.
Toto's opening.
Yeah, Toto opening for Journey. I mean, those weren't, I didn't really grow up with those bands, but it's still cool to see a lot of these bands out there, and to see that there is still an audience. I saw that
Yeah.
Smokey Robinson is on tour, which I thought, I've always been a Smokey Robinson fan, which I was
That's great.
pretty psyched to see him. He's got to be in his 80s at this point, right?
He looks good though. He's
Yeah, yeah,
but also everybody being back and on tour means there's less tour buses, so they're more expensive. It's like it's just there's always a flip side to everything where it's like
yeah,
the industry where like it's hard for bands coming up to get into these better venues now because every band that's ever existed since 1962 is back on tour. Like that's
yeah,
difficult.
yeah,
Even in the Long Island scene, I'm glad to see some of these bands that I grew up loving are back reunited or doing these one-offs. But that's taking away from new bands too, booking those nights. Now, maybe that's good for the venues because these old bands can get everybody together one night and you sell them out.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
like what Silent Majority did was they brought on Koyo, which is like a new band from Stony Brook that's crushing it. So they got them in front of people that maybe wouldn't have heard of them, and they made a lot of new fans, I think.
yeah,
And they continue
yeah,
to push them, and that's what the scene always was about. Everybody
yeah,
lifting up the new generation, and there was a point where things kind of went into a repetitive circle of staleness, where new bands
yeah,
they can't get in there. The gatekeepers are still the same gatekeepers, man. That's the
yeah,
funniest thing.
yeah.
Can't get past them. You
Will
know,
you last question, man, will you push your son in the direction of playing music, or will you say stay away, or will you
he will
just
be
be
a
kind
hedge
of
fund broker
indifferent?
defrauding a foreign government. No way. No. No. It's funny too because I'll play guitar for him and he's like, "What is that?" But he's so young. Look, I'm gonna let him do whatever he wants to do. I mean, unless he wants to like do wheelies on a moped down the street and kill
But
himself.
you
It
won't
depends. Like,
push him in the direction of music. You won't say like do this, put a guitar in his hand, that type of thing.
no, no. I'll be like, hey, this is what I do. If you're interested, you could give it a try. I will teach you if you want to learn, but I'm not gonna force him to do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not.
I
It's
feel
up
the
to him.
same way. I mean, we my daughter takes guitar lessons, my oldest takes piano lessons, but not for like the you're going to be in a band, but because music is awesome and it
Yeah,
matters, and
and
nobody's
it's a
at a
language. Yeah,
as a language, and nobody's at
yeah.
a house party reading The Sun Also Rises to a group of but they are playing,
Yeah,
Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, and the whole place
yeah,
is like, or whatever the song is. And so like music is, for me, music matters immensely, but my I will not tell my kids to start a band, as much as it taught me and as much as I am
yeah.
who I am today, because I did that. I will, to your point, I will say, become no, maybe not defrauding foreign governments, but
No.
college, career, and if you like to play piano at a party, that's cool
Yeah.
too.
Plus, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, nothing new has really happened in a while. Everything is very derivative. Like, I walked down my streets of my town, all these like 18-year-old girls walking around Queens who look like the girls that I dated in the 90s. Like, it's just funny how things in this cycle. And some
Yeah,
of the
the
music
styles,
is
yeah,
like,
they come back. Yeah,
yeah, it's like, well, I'm glad I didn't throw out half my old clothes. I'm cool again. But yeah, it's like, it's just so interesting. Like even the new music, it's very derivative. It's kind of grunge with electro. It's kind of this. It's nothing. No one's done anything revolutionary new. But I
yeah,
feel like somewhere out of somewhere, some kid in Singapore is gonna like come out with something that no one's done, and maybe that will get all these new kids psyched to do something
mm,
in the scene or something. Like so like it's
that's
hard to
cool.
predict. What like K-pop became so huge like in
Yeah,
America, which that was like that kind of a phenomenon that kind of came out of nowhere, like which and that's still derivative of Western music, whatever. But it could be something totally new and alien. It
mm,
could come out of Africa. Who knows? Like like
yeah, yeah. Well, you gave us a lot to think about, man. I appreciate your honesty as always. Where can people find you and find your band and check out some of your music?
I mean, you can find us on Spotify. That's the discovery tool. It's on YouTube. Black
So
Suit
Black
Youth,
Suit Youth, okay.
black
Great.
suit, as in like a tailored suit for young
Yeah.
guys, even though we're not.
Yeah.
And then Instagram at Black Suit Youth Band. And yeah, I mean, look, and Google's your friend. You can find us through there if you want to
Cool.
check it out. And our song "Outsiders" doing really good for us right now. I think that's a song everybody would dig. Summer's over, but it was a good summer banger. So put that
Cool.
on the last night maybe.
All right, man. Well, appreciate that. We'll also list all your info when this episode gets released. Thanks so much for coming on, Bryan. Appreciate your candor and your even though you're getting older and you're mellowing out, there's still there's a fire in your belly, same as when I met you back when we were in our 20s and 30s. So I'll see you soon. And for everybody who tuned in, thanks so much. We'll see you next time on a new episode of the Inspiration Accelerator.
Hell yeah, man.
Thanks.
You got it.